In ancient Sparta, a city steeped in a spirit of rigorous discipline, existence was a harsh trial demanding unwavering fortitude and boundless loyalty to one's homeland from every citizen. For boys born into this unique polis, life transformed into a continuous series of challenges, beginning at birth and continuing until death. Each Spartan was viewed solely as a highly effective combat unit, a reliable workhorse whose purpose lay in uncompromising struggle for the prosperity of the state. In those rare moments when a Spartan was not engaged in pitched battles, he tirelessly honed his combat skills, preparing for new military campaigns. Thus, all his upbringing was directed towards creating an ideal warrior, ready to sacrifice everything for Sparta. Control over a Spartan boy's life began almost with his first breath. A newborn infant was presented to the Gerousia, the council of elders, composed of the most respected and experienced Spartans. There, the newborn underwent a thorough examination, as if assessing valuable but soulless property. If, during this stringent inspection, the infant was found to be ill, weak, or to possess any physical or mental defects, he was deemed useless for the Spartan army, and consequently, for the state. Despite widespread legends of such rejected newborns being mercilessly thrown into a chasm or left to die at the foot of Mount Taygetus, it is more probable that they were simply left exposed to the elements in the wilderness. In rare instances, these abandoned infants were found by local inhabitants and secretly taken in, granting them a chance at a different life. In most cases, however, inevitable death from the harsh weather conditions awaited them. Boys who successfully passed the strict Gerousia selection were returned to their families, where their tireless preparation for a hard and severe life began. Newborn Spartans were not bathed in ordinary water but immersed in baths filled with wine. This ritualistic cleansing was believed to strengthen their bodies and spirits, making them more resilient to hardship. According to belief, weaker infants could not withstand such a trial, experiencing convulsions and ultimately perishing. From an early age, children were also taught to overcome the fear of darkness and solitude. When they cried or showed discontent, parents deliberately ignored them to harden their will. This upbringing continued until the boys reached the age of 7. Although the first 6 years of a Spartan child's life were marked by significant difficulties, they were still considered relatively favorable. Compared to how the state began to treat them upon reaching 7 years, these early years seemed almost idyllic. From the age of 7, Spartan boys began their rigorous military training. Each youth entered the agoge, a unique state educational system under the vigilant control of the paidonymus, literally meaning boy herder. This magistrate was entirely responsible for the upbringing of future Spartan warriors. The agoge was clearly structured and divided into 3 age groups: paids, 7 to 17 years, paidiskos, 17 to 19 years, and hibantes, 20 to 29 years. Some historical sources indicate the existence of smaller subdivisions within these classes, grouped by year of birth. In the early stage of training, within the paids category, Spartan boys underwent an intensive training regimen, transforming into fearless warriors by mastering hand-to-hand combat, military strategy, and hunting skills. Spartan women, unlike men, did not undergo an analogous training system. However, their education included dancing, gymnastics, and javelin throwing, which was aimed at raising strong and physically developed mothers. It was upon Spartan women that the vital task lay, to ensure the birth of healthy offspring, future valiant warriors. Spartan women enjoyed unprecedented freedom in ancient Greece, which surprised women from other regions. Spartan women appeared free-thinking and assertive towards their husbands, possessing independence and the right to own property. A rarity at the time. Furthermore, they received a better education. The practice of infanticide for newborns deemed unhealthy is a historical fact, but the question of its extension to girls remains debatable, although Plutarch's evidence indirectly suggests otherwise. Unlike boys, who were handed over to the state, newborn girls were returned to their mothers, who raised them according to a strict regime of physical exercise and balanced nutrition. Spartan girls trained to achieve the same physical strength as boys, mastering horse riding, running, wrestling, discus and javelin throwing, and undergoing strength tests. Spartan warriors maintained the strictest moderation in alcohol consumption, as intoxication posed a direct threat to their primary goal, selfless service to the Spartan army. Clearly, a soldier under the influence of alcohol lost his combat effectiveness and became unfit for military duties. From a young age, Spartan children were instilled with the belief that excessive alcohol consumption was the lot of slaves. To vividly demonstrate the harmfulness of drunkenness, Spartans deliberately intoxicated their slaves to an incoherent state. These men, having lost control, were then paraded before the children so they could witness firsthand how pathetic and ridiculous a person looked when they had lost their self-control. Thus, addiction to alcohol was considered a clear sign of weakness and dissoluteness. Although Spartan warriors were permitted to consume wine during meals, the high demands placed upon them implied an unwavering adherence to self-discipline. It is highly probable that warriors who abused alcohol would not have survived the first serious battles. A Spartan's life, from the age of 7, was under constant and vigilant control. Regarding clothing, each young warrior received only one item of apparel per year, a red cloak. This served as a peculiar method of weight control. If a boy gained excess weight and could not fit into the issued clothing, the only way to rectify the situation was through intensive training and moderation in eating. Furthermore, before commencing official military service, youths did not wear shoes. They were made to walk barefoot, even in snow, with the aim of toughening their feet and developing robust calluses, enabling them to cover significant distances in any, even the harshest, conditions. In the mess halls, the boys' food portions were intentionally reduced, serving insufficient quantities for full satiety. This contributed to the formation of a lean, athletic physique and maintained a constant feeling of slight hunger. Moreover, anyone who gained excess weight was immediately ostracized and risked expulsion from the community. Despite the severe discipline that pervaded the daily lives of young Spartans, they were permitted to marry. Marriage was necessary to maintain the birth rate and ensure a continuous influx of youths for military training. However, since men were entirely devoted to the state and military service, they were obliged to live in barracks. Only upon reaching 30 years of age were they allowed to live separately. Nevertheless, married men secretly left the barracks at night to spend time with their beloveds. Interestingly, youths caught attempting to escape were punished with flogging not for the escape itself, but for being caught. It is important to note that the punishments applied to young men never served as a deterrent. Beatings were a consequence of insufficient caution and an inability to avoid detection. Spartans represented a unique community in the ancient world. Unlike Athenians, Spartans showed no interest in philosophy or art, focusing instead on achieving perfection in military affairs. Nevertheless, Spartans did pay attention to public education. However, learning was concentrated on mastering military strategies, physical training, and strengthening mental fortitude. Girls were not exempt from military training, although they did not serve in the army like boys. Young Spartans were systematically subjected to corporal punishment or humiliation. This practice served to maintain their readiness and develop resilience. Military instructors deliberately provoked rivalry between boys by staging fights. This approach allowed for the identification of the weak and the establishment of the strong. As soon as a Spartan showed signs of weakness, he faced neglect and cruelty. Spartan boys were restricted in food to encourage them to steal. If they were caught, they were severely punished not for theft, but for failing to avoid detection. This strategy aimed to forge resilient warriors, in contrast to pampered individuals. Limited rations accustomed the youth to deprivation and hunger, which served as preparation for hardships during military campaigns. In ancient Sparta, a clear social hierarchy existed. The primary goal of every Spartan was to serve in the army, but the societal structure functioned thanks to a class system. The three main classes included the Spartiates, who held the highest position, the Perioeci, and the Helots, who occupied the lowest rung. Spartan society was clearly structured. The Spartiates, native inhabitants of Sparta, possessed full political and legal rights. They had the exclusive right to participate in state affairs, served as the foundation of the army, and exercised control over Sparta. The Perioeci, often newcomers from other lands, were merchants and blacksmiths who produced weapons and armor for the Spartan army. The Perioeci were taxpayers, possessed certain rights, including the ability to own land, and had access to education. Like other segments of the population, the Perioeci had military obligations, but their role in the army was auxiliary. They were responsible for developing trade and maintaining relations with neighboring states. The life of the Perioeci was not unbearable. The lowest class were the helots, who performed heavy labor, acting as servants and agricultural workers. Spartans harbored hostility towards the helots, who originated from the region of Helos. As its population grew, Sparta expanded its territories until it reached the village of Helos. The Spartans invaded the village, destroying some inhabitants and taking many captive. Over time, the helots became slaves of Sparta, and although theoretically they had the opportunity to gain freedom by joining the army, this brought no real change. Even after gaining freedom, a helot continued to be subjected to brutal treatment. In Sparta, there was a practice of killing any helot, even if they were free. This was akin to a scenario from the Purge film series, where the government permits citizens to commit any acts against each other. No helot, regardless of status, could feel safe. In Sparta, where the numerous class of dependent servants, the helots, bore the burden of daily chores, Spartan women enjoyed unprecedented freedom. Before marriage and childbirth, they devoted themselves to various activities and competitions, honing their skills in singing, dancing, javelin throwing, wrestling, and other athletic disciplines. Ancient artworks and surviving depictions attest that young Spartan women competed unashamedly naked. Furthermore, Spartan girls participated in the Gymnopaedia, an annual festival where naked youths displayed their athletic prowess and martial artistry in ritual dances. This large-scale festival, established in 668 BC, was marked by the introduction of competitions where participants performed nude. Undoubtedly, these contests attracted the attention of Spartan men, highlighting the physical strength and grace of the female participants. However, beyond this, they served an important function, preparing women for motherhood, so they could bear and raise healthy and strong offspring.